Public relations is one of the allied areas of mass communication, and it plays a vital role in every society. And no organization can thrive without public relations, except they want to, of course, be dwelling in crisis. And this is what brings us to the continuation of our discussion last week, Your Image at 6, the way forward. And this program, of course, started 6 years ago, and it's very important for us to celebrate ourselves, and that is why we are continuing with what we discussed last week on this show, Your Image from this station. My guests are already here with me to discuss and to tell us how important publications is, number one, and how germane your image is to the society. Let me start from my left-hand side. I still have Kabiyesi, His Royal Highness Oba Barrister Olufemi Ogunleye Towulade Akinale of Owo Kingdom. Kabiyesi, you are welcome this week again, sir.
Thank you very much.
I want to appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You came last week and this week again. I want to appreciate you, and thanks for being part of our celebration.
I appreciate it.
On my immediate hand side, we still have a veteran broadcaster. Of course, they are staff at different areas of broadcasting, different stations, even at the higher level. It's also a public analyst, Mr. Eddie. I know. Welcome again this week, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us on this week's edition again, we have Mr. Tope Aderamola, one-time chairman, of course, the immediate past chairman of the State chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Mr. Tope Aderamola, you are welcome, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Let me start from you.
Okay.
We are celebrating Your Image at 6, and we started last week because if we don't celebrate ourselves, nobody will celebrate us. So we want to focus this week's edition on contemporary issues. Because any organization that fails to make use of publications will definitely fail, and it will be dwelling in crisis. We want to go contemporary now. In what way do you think PR can solve? We have a lot of challenges in Nigeria, no problem anyway. So which area do you think PR can really work in Nigeria? Which section, which area, which sector of Nigeria as a large entity that I think publications is much needed?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I like to say that it will be difficult for me to pin down any particular sector, because every sector requires communication, and every sector requires some kind of PR input, because if I follow the trend of discourse, one of our veterans here was talking about trying to define what image is. And that didn't, I was not lost on that. I believe strongly that even the entire universe is sustained through God, you know, communicating with us here. And of course, if you put this within the context of our nation, there is hardly any aspect of our nation that is not worthy, where communication or public relation is not needed. From the recent events that had just happened, which we cannot pretend as if we don't know happened, we saw a lot of the lacuna, which public relations should have filled. We saw a lot of misconceptions, which almost set this nation on fire. Yes, concerning the NSAS, some of us did some write-ups. You know, we also opinionated, because if there is any failing that public relations practitioners have had, I think it has to do with the failing of not positioning themselves as people who give perspective, as opinion molders, you know, in the society. And this we failed. But I could still see that some of us were able to square up to it. Imagine the massacre theory, when somebody said, whilst I'm not trying to hold brief for government, but I challenge some people that when you call a killing a massacre, some even said it was a genocide, and so on, and it gained currency all over the world, and you could see the government helpless. I saw the government was outrightly helpless. Is it the government or the PR people? Yes, of course, when we say the government, they are the PR people. Yeah. Because for God's sake, the reason why you are appointed as a press agent or press secretary or whatever nomenclature you come is for you to be able to assist the government. Your employment presupposes the fact that I need help. And if it also comes down to the issue of before you cannot give what you do not have. So I can see that a lot of people, a lot of communicators or so-called PR practitioners, with due respect, were even at a loss as to what to do. Some of them went into hiding. There were calls that were put through, for them to intervene. There were intervention time that, we never saw them. And of course, they left the communication space to people who never knew, what they would do with it. And of course, if you abdicate your power, somebody is going to take it from you. And that was what we saw, that almost set the whole world, the whole nation on fire. Yes.
I think you wanted to react to what he said about that, because it's a burning issue, and something. I think something is missing somewhere.
Yeah, a lot is missing. If you look at what in PR practice, what government ought to have done, or those people who are representing government, what they ought to have done and they are not doing. In fact, if you look at this battle, the last battle, we fought, it was fought on social media, and we know the power of social media. It's very fast, it moves fast, and in fact, I normally tell people that this period, the period of social media technology, is the only means of mass communication we have now, because hitherto the mainstream media is from one source to many, could be to billions. But what we have now is from many sources, to many sources. On the streets of China alone, you have about 970 million people holding Android phones, and which means they can interact, they can
freely, without hindrances.
Yes, you can send messages, you can interact with people, you can do anything you want, and you can be mischievous if you want to make it. And I keep on wondering, why didn't government meet the youth on this social media thing? We're talking of social media management. How are you managing it? What is social media management? Making your presence felt online, on very many on many platforms. You have Facebook. Facebook has 1 billion people running through it on daily basis. And if you go to Twitter, Twitter is news. In fact, most of us pick our news on Twitter. Twitter has 330 million people, on daily basis. In fact, Instagram is almost taking over Facebook now. So it almost has almost 1 billion viewers, users too. So why don't you use this media, to reach the youth? I think that lacuna was there at that point in time, because we didn't do what we ought to have done. We knew the target audience, and we know wrong information can pass to them. Why don't we use the right information, to counter the wrong, this fake news that we have been talking about, and by government having presence on the social media. In fact, in most cases, you need about 30 minutes on daily basis. Not only that, you need somebody to represent government at any point in time. Exactly. So to counter negative, negative information being passed, but at that point in time, we didn't do it. And lastly, before now, at the point end SARS, at the point government said, okay, fine, we are going to take your 5-point program and we are going to cancel SARS. Fine, but bringing SWAT in immediately didn't. I mean, wasn't it at all? It was
so abrupt.
Yeah, it was in bad faith, because even if you want to bring in SWAT, allow some time. Let's settle this problem first. But that exacerbated the whole thing. That was the reason why people now, left from the social media to the streets. And so, I mean, that was the period. That was the problem.
I could see Kabiyesi has been nodding. But before you react to that, let me add this so that I can answer together. You are talking about social media. Has social media brought more danger to us? Because during your time, there was nothing like social media. Even mobile phone was not available. And there was efficient information delivery, dissemination of information during that. But now everybody has become, of course, a reporter in his own area. So, do you have any? Is it a shortcoming, or
it's not a shortcoming? It's part of development, and we should have to go along with it. We saw it coming, and there's no, even in teachers in mass comm, they now say it now. We saw it coming. We should not wait until the thing boomerang before we begin to know what I was trying to say is what my colleague said. Counter narratives is very, very important in making government to know to get across to their people, counter narratives. And it was when we should not rely on our conventional training that we had in yesteryears that you write press release or you ask a president of that do so waiting for directive from the principal. It should be up to date and counter something and say something quickly and let it go ahead. And there are so many channels, opportunity for us to do. I hope we've learned lesson anyway.
And if you don't do it, some people will do it for you.
Oh, they will. I mean, that's just what happened to us. So that's what I see.
Well, we are still in the euphoria of the celebration, 6 years of existence of your image. And of course, we are not rolling these out. So many messages have been sent to us, congratulating us on this celebration. And permit me to just read one or two to us so that you know that people are actually listening and watching this program over the years. And this one comes from the former chairman of Ogun State NIPR and the fellow of the institute, Mrs. Doinsola Ogunbiyi, and she says, and I quote, "I commend your resilience to keep the program alive. You are a great and passionate professional. So proud of you, Aki Okudero." This comes from Doi Ogunbiyi, a three-time commissioner in Ogun State. And let me also read from a PR manager of NIPOST, Valerie Bola Ekeogu. She says, "Congratulations. The program has been informative, educative, and immensely promoting the corporate governance among others in Nigeria." And permit me to also read this from the Vice Chancellor of Crescent University, Abeokuta, Professor Ibrahim Gajabiamila. And he says, "On behalf of the proprietor, His Excellency Judge Prince Bola Ajibola Sand, KBE, Governing Council, Management, Staff, and students of Crescent University, Abeokuta congratulates Your Image TV program on its 6th anniversary. We recognize you as a pioneer program in West Africa. Your concept is unique. We pray that you continue to march onwards and upwards." And let me add this from a permanent secretary in Ogun State, Kehinde Onosoya, of course a friend of the house. Well articulated and meaningful program. And from Olusegun Onifade Funab, "I wish you all the best as you soar higher of a greater opportunity." And let me stop there. And these are messages still rolling in, so we want to appreciate you. Thank you very much for your goodwill messages. So let me go back to Mr. Tope Adramola. We want to go contemporary.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, comparing the practice now to those days, when you did, when Kabesi did, when Mr. Eddie Aino did, in those days, PR people and information officers and the rest of them used to write stories, articles in newspapers. It seems that trend is fading off now. What do you think this is responsible for? Is it laziness or the absence of ideas, or I don't know? So what's your opinion about this?
Well, thank you very much. I think it has to do with the mood of the time. Let me call it the mood of the time. It's very, very regretful that the time when some of my elders here practiced and the time that some of us also came much later after them, there was this inner crave for you to continually develop yourself. There was an atmosphere of competition. Everybody, you know, had one thing to pursue positively or the other, unlike what is happening today. So what is happening with respect to information management is symptomatic of what is happening in the entire society. I recall from personal experience when I was employed as an information officer, and I went to the newsroom. I skimmed through the Ogis, we call it Ogis in those days. I looked at it and said, hey, if I continue to write for the Ogis, nobody would know me. Because what we do with the Ogis those days was to write the Ogis, give it to journalists, and journalists that are very smart, they are going to turn around your story, which you wrote, and give their own byline. So I felt, okay, if I continue with this context of Ogis, there is no way that my own personal touch, you know, will be there. So I started writing features. Nobody could deny me of my byline when I write features. And of course, with all sense of modesty, that became, you know, it triggers some competition amongst information officers. And everybody handling one bit or the other wanted his name either in Punch, no, not so much of Punch that time, Tribune, Sketch, you know. So yes, and it became a talk trade that Did you see your byline? Yeah. How many articles did you write this week? And of course, but today, if you take a look at it, mediocrity is everywhere. The young people have all the tools to work in this world that we and our elders never had. But the extent to which they are maximizing it. I told somebody that the phone that you are carrying in your pocket is a very great resource. Yes. For God's sake, when IT blitz came in here, the capacity of the phones that we are carrying now is the capacity of the entire information infrastructure of a bank. And that's what you put in your pocket. And we are underutilizing it. You can go Google, you can go everywhere, you can positively affect anything. There is nothing under heaven that you cannot do. So it helps you to be a better information managers. But unfortunately, the extent to which some of us can give what we don't have is just not there.
All right, thank you. You talk about mediocrity in practice. Let's divert this to broadcasting. Even these days, most broadcasters are not really professional as expected in terms of composure, pronunciation, so many things. It was not like that and they have all the resources, like you have said. What do you think is responsible for this?
Well, it wasn't like that, but again, we have to look at the proliferation of media houses. To date, you have close to 600 radio and TV stations in this country, where you add the direct-to-home and the cable retransmission station. Unlike those days, yes, the number can be advantageous. People will get more jobs, you have more content, you have the money to produce. And competition. And you can competition, then you can train people and what have you. But most of those things are missing now. You can imagine, before anybody gets behind the microphone, you have to sit in. You have to watch somebody, in fact, at times for 2 months, 3 months, in a station. But these days, greenhorns are being used because the good ones, yes, the experienced ones have been hired by organizations that have the money. I mean, people move now, there's job mobility in broadcasting, and that's the reason why you have this situation you're talking about. And again, it boggles the mind that despite the fact that people have technology to use, they don't use it. I had cause to interview some graduates, and you begin to wonder, in fact, at a point in time, I asked, what did you read? He said, mass communication. Define mass com. She couldn't define mass com. What topic did you write on your project? She couldn't even read it. And so you begin to wonder what the use, the make of this technology we are talking about. And even the spoken language, as seen, most of these things are
this spoken language.
You begin to wonder what is really happening. And people are no longer serious with their studies. The will to read is no more there. The will to excel is no more there. And you hardly can pick real just few professionals in an office, in the newsroom or in programming or even in engineering. What is the cause? I mean, it bothers me. It cannot be because you have more people in the business. More people should mean more, but even the curriculum. For how long do they stay in the school? I mean, the universities have been off in the last 9 months now, and they are still battling as to whether it's going to be IPPS or the UTAS university. I mean, it's a whole lot of problems.
I think that will lead me to the next question I will ask Kabisi. It may be personal, and that one may even, of course, make so many people watching us to learn from you. At over 70 years, you still go to school. You went to read law at over 70. You went to law school, LLM. You went back to read mass comm, MSc, and the rest of them. And the youth are there, complacent. What do you think is responsible for the falling standard, or what they contend with on a daily basis in terms of social media have actually diverted their attention?
So many things. Unfortunately, really, so many things. Even at home, the parental problems, every society, everything has added up to put us where we are today. When you were talking about, when my colleague Diana was talking, in those days, in every practice, be it journalism, be it PR, be everything, we put our love into it. It's not just you are passing. If you are a passing person that just want to do it for the sake of doing job, you may not know. But I have the credit of singularly writing, editing, printing, and publishing a newspaper in this country. Kola Adesina, who today is the head of mass comm in Crescent University, he and I ran the Village News. Our first edition came in February 1986. We cut all the headlines of all the newspapers in Nigeria. We made their fonts to be our fonts. We created headlines. We pasted. We did everything. We just went to the Lito. After the Lito, we went to the camera. After the camera, we went to go and print. And that was the newspaper. And these are what we were taught in the university, in the mass. I was part and parcel of production of Lagoon Echo in the Lagos University. And so we saw through from reporting to writing to editing to everything, and then we brought it out to come and practicalize it.
I got my feet in journalism through that newspaper.
We thank God.
I started my journalism.
And saying again, but when you are talking about people not writing, when I joined Nigeria Airways, I discovered that I needed to write more things about Nigeria Airways. I focused seriously. Well, again, I had one opportunity having come as a reporter from the airport into Nigeria Airways. I've been reporting aviation. So I wrote about Nigeria. When I noticed that newspapers in Nigeria had no time for me, I established a newspaper to publish aviation stories. And I don't know, we are just lazy today. We are complacent and we don't want to do it. That's just the bottom line. I think we should do more to make sure that we develop ourselves into this line and do better.
Okay, before we round off, we still have a few minutes to round off. Kabisi, we are celebrating 6 years of your image. What is your message to PR practitioners, to viewers, and to people who may want to assist this program?
Thank you very much. To all of us who are PR professionals, we should not relax. We should just continue to put more effort in creating good image that we need. We should do more, and for general public too, and for our colleagues, we don't need to relax. We just keep on reading. There's no, don't blame circumstance. We should create circumstance for ourselves to make sure we move forward. I think that's the best thing. I just say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Idea, you are part of our celebration. 6 years consecutively, consistently, persistently is not a joke in broadcasting. You have been there, you know it's not easy. So what is your message?
Let me just say that it should continue, and I hope one day some people will listen to it, because the program I appeared on here that has to do with community relations, I know a lot of people watched that program and they learned a lot from it, and it's from that program that they started arranging police relations, how to contribute to society, to the community. You don't leave everything to government and so on and so forth. So I would think that our focus now should be to governmental relations in communities. For instance, I was so impressed that the military went to Fagba, this Fagba fracas, that happens sometimes, Ijayi, Fako, Ojokodo, and the military men, they organized peace initiative, peace meeting. I think we should do more of that.
All right, thank you. And finally to Mr. Tokyo Adamola, of course, you have been the chairman of NIPR in Ogun State, and you have been very pivotal to the success of our story on this show. So your message.
Thank you very much. I think this program, by and large, is a very clear testimonial of excellence, professional excellence, diligence, and the tenacity of purpose of the initiator of the program himself. That's Mr. Akin Okudero. And I can only say that the largest room in life is the room of improvement. In the last 6 years, it's been very good, but there's still room for excellence, and I'm sure that it's attainable. I'm looking at this program in the next tranche of years ahead, trying to synergize. We've just talked about the social media now, and this is a traditional media. I want more synergy of relationship between this and that. And I also would like, finally, for this program to be on the street. Yes.
Thank you.
So you understand what that means.
Thank you very much. I want to say a very big thank you to my guest, Ilsura Ines, Oba Barsa Olufemi Ogunle Towlade Akiale of Okina. Kabisi, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Radio Poloriki Bata. Mr. Edi, I know, thank you very much for being part of our celebration, and Mr. Tokwe Aderamola. We want to say congratulations to all the team of your image under the leadership of Akin Okudero, fellow NIPR and one-time chairman NIPR Ogun State, PR consultant and managing director. PR Primus. Until we meet next week, God willing, we want to say congratulations to all members of staff of PR Primus. See you next week.